Hey guys, welcome to episode 9 of the weekly update, the series where I talk about my experiences with pickleball paddles that I've hit throughout the week. Now, I'm finally done traveling for the foreseeable future, so I did get a chance to play a lot more pickleball this week. I got to try out some newer paddles as well as revisit some older ones as well. But anyways, let's get into it. Starting off, let's talk about the new GX2 series from Gearbox. Now, this is an interesting one. It has a carbon fiber core and it has an edge guard, which is pretty uncommon with Gearbox paddles. And the numbers on these aren't that great. So I have the elongated and the Integra, which is the hybrid shaped. And for both of them, the swing weights were in the mid 120s, and then the twist weights were both under 6. I think probably like 5.80 for both of them. In terms of the feel of the face, because it is a carbon fiber core, it's not going to feel like any of the other polypropylene cores that many people are used to. I describe the feel as a really plush and dense, has a really solid feel to it. But what's interesting is how much power actually comes out of the paddle. So I'd say the firepower is probably in the high all-court to all-court leaning power range. It deceptively gives you good power. And it's really similar to what I think the Vatic Sagas are. Like those also have a plush feel of the face, but then you get more power than you expect. But also like those, the pop on these isn't that high. I would say it's more that the power is higher on these, and part of that is due to the swing weights being higher. But yeah, they're an interesting paddle. I think if you like the feel of the core, you might enjoy these. I'm still going to be continuing to hit these because I've only hit them for a few games, but I do want to try adding some tape to bump up the stability. I think the sweet spots aren't as big compared to other Gen 2 thermoform paddles, but stay tuned for more of this one. Next up, let's talk about the Nexus Prostar. So a bit of an older paddle, but I did just receive this one, so just now hitting it. But this is a thermoform paddle with a titanium surface, and from my understanding, it does also have foam-filled cells. And I hit this side by side with the bread and butter Shogun, which is also another elongated titanium paddle. Now, the Prostar, I would say it's a bit more head heavy and slower compared to the Shogun, and it has a softer feel of the face. It's not as powerful, and it has a lot more of a solid and denser feel, while the Shogun was a bit more lighter and springy compared to the Prostar. But when speaking with the owner of Nexus, he did say that there is a break-in period with the Prostar. So stay tuned for more on this as I continue to hit it, because I am curious to see what that break-in period is going to be like and if there's going to be a lot more power that comes out of this paddle. Moving on, let's talk about the Unmarked from Marked Pickleball again. So I've been hitting this more, and I still think it's a really solid paddle. I personally like it better than their other elongated option, the Mark II. It does have a CFC surface, but I don't think the CFC is as apparent as something like the Core Supercord or the 11624 paddles. But speaking of 11624, I did hit this side by side compared to the Hirachi Alpha, mainly because both of these utilize those wide 10mm cell cores. And I would say that the Alpha, it's lighter and more maneuverable because the Unmarked is a bit head heavy, and the Alpha is a bit lighter and springier off the face, while the Unmarked is a bit more denser and more solid feeling. We also get a bit more pop and power to it as well. But overall, I think the Unmarked still it's a solid paddle. I don't think there's anything crazy new or interesting about it, and there's nothing too unique about it, but it's a really solid elongated paddle option, just a little bit head heavy. Next up, let's revisit some paddles that we talked about in the past. So we have the Red Robust and the Nxt-01 MAX. But starting off, let's talk about the Red Robust. So this is a Gen 3 style paddle, and last time I spoke about it, I did say that it was breaking in a bit, and it reminded me of an elongated version of the J2K Plus that was slightly broken in, so it had a really solid feel. Power, I would say, was a little bit above average. And I did spend a lot more time hitting with this paddle this week, but unfortunately, I didn't see any more changes. I didn't think that the paddle broke in anymore, and I personally don't think that it will break in anymore. What's unfortunate is that I don't really know what the construction of this paddle is and where the extra foam is, and unfortunately neither does the owner. So because of that, it's tough to say how this paddle is going to behave in the future. I personally don't think it's gonna change anymore. It reminds me of the Velo Edge 3K that I covered in the past. So that's another paddle where it had like a different feel because of that Gen 3 style construction, but it didn't really have any high levels of power. It just had like a different feel to it. Power was just like slightly above an average Gen 2. Now I know that if you don't apply the heat correctly, or if the the manufacturing isn't done well when you're trying to make these Gen 3 style paddles, then you won't get that Gen 3 style levels of power that you see in the mods or the Gen 3Ss. And that could be a potential as what we're seeing with the Red Robust and the Edge 3K. And speaking about that, let's talk about the Nxt-01 MAX. So this is also a Gen 3 style paddle, but it has foam-filled cells. I thought this was an improvement over their original NXT1. So that one was like a super stiff feeling Gen 2. And the NXT1 MAX, I think with the foam-filled cells, it has a really nicer, much nicer feel off the face compared to the original NXT1. But even with that Gen 3 style construction on here as well, I don't think there was a break-in period with this. Power for this was more average. It just had like a nicer feel off the face, but I didn't notice too much of a break-in period with the NXT1 MAX. And I think that's just similar to how the Red Robust is and the Velo Edge 3K. Like these are Gen 3 style paddles, but they just don't have the Gen 3 style levels of power. But yeah, I don't think I will be covering these anymore in the future because I did hit these quite a bit and I just haven't been seeing any changes. And fortunately, there are other paddles I do need to cover. And if I don't think that there are going to be changes on this, I just don't think it's going to be worth the time to give more time to these paddles. The last paddle we're going to talk about today is going to be the Thrive Smoke. So this was actually the most surprising one for me, and I would say this is probably my favorite one that I hit this week. It actually did release last week, and I still haven't read what's in the product guide that they sent me. But anyways, in terms of how this one plays, it's a very poppy paddle. I think it's up there in terms of one of the most poppiest paddles I've hit. When you're hitting counters and putaways, you can definitely feel the ball fly off the face, but even still, on like dinks and softer shots, I still think you can get good control with this. For overall firepower, I would say that this has more pop than it has power. I can still consider this a power paddle, probably like closer near the bottom of the power paddle category. But I would say in terms of feel, it's probably the paddle on the market that's closest in feel to the Paddle Tech Phantoms. And I also think it has a better sweet spot than them, specifically compared to the elongated version, since this is an elongated paddle. But this is a really nice paddle, and I'm actually really excited to hit this one more, so stay tuned for more on this. Anyways, that's it for today's episode of the Weekly Update. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Thanks, guys. You gotta stop getting up so early. No, I'll get you one day.